Imagine standing in front of a pristine, expensive 50 by 70 centimeter canvas.
Right, the ultimate blank slate.
Exactly. You're a master painter. You're about to begin a new work. What tool do you grab first? I mean, a fine sable brush, maybe?
You would think so.
Or a delicate palette knife? But what if I told you that one of the great contemporary masters begins his entirely meticulous process with, well, a cheap household sponge,
It's wild.
and then he brings in a roll of masking tape, and for the grand finale, a pastry bag.
I mean, it sounds almost like a parody of modern art, right? When
Yeah.
you just list the tools out of context like that.
Totally.
But the reality is anything but random. Today in our deep dive, we're looking at a really remarkable text. It details a masterclass by the great artist Rodolfo IM from the highly renowned group IM.
Such an incredible group.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And if we approach this document like, say, a high-end cinematic documentary, think of those slow, deliberate BBC art films where the camera captures the microtexture of every single brushstroke. What emerges is just this breathtakingly intelligent process.
Which is exactly the myth we are trying to shatter today. Because, there's this universal misconception that abstract art is just, I don't know, throwing paint at a wall, letting the brush run wild, and just hoping for a happy accident.
Right, the old "my kid could paint that" cliche.
Exactly. But this document, it proves the exact opposite. This master artist, he doesn't just throw paint. He builds an abstract painting with the rigorous, calculated engineering of a Gothic cathedral.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it.
And he does it all using a severely restricted palette of only 3 colors.
Which, that forces a radical kind of problem solving. When you limit your variables so strictly, you are no longer just painting an image. You're manipulating the physics of light, the psychology of perception, and even the physical space between the canvas and the viewer. Yeah, every single stroke, every tool chosen, and every deliberate void left empty has a profound architectural purpose.
So to build any kind of enduring architecture, I mean, you have to start with the ground it stands on.
Absolutely.
And according to the masterclass document, Rodolfo begins by covering the entire bare canvas in white acrylic. But as I mentioned, he bypasses the brush entirely and uses a sponge.
Right, the sponge.
And I have to admit, my first thought when reading that was, well, a sponge just covers surface area faster, Like, is it really just an efficiency hack?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's actually a highly deliberate technical choice regarding the behavior of light.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about a brush. A brush, by its very nature, leaves directional ridges, right? Bristle marks. Even the absolute finest brush leaves a microscopic topography on the canvas.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that.
If you're listening to this right now, just imagine painting a wall in your house with a cheap, stiff brush. When the afternoon sun hits that wall, you see every single streak and shadow.
Oh, totally. It drives me crazy when I paint my living room.
Exactly. But a sponge, however, creates a perfectly uniform stippled surface. It completely eliminates those directional application marks.
So it's essentially like pouring a perfectly level concrete foundation before you build a house.
Yes.
Like if your base is uneven. Okay, so with that perfectly smooth, bright white foundation set and fully dry, you would expect him to, I don't know, start painting shapes.
Sure.
But instead, he introduces the first rules of the universe he's building, and he does it with masking tape.
The tape is crucial.
Right. He runs strips of tape to create 2 distinct horizontal bands across the canvas. But crucially, he deliberately leaves the entire center of the canvas completely empty.
Yeah, and that masking tape represents the absolute dominion of geometry. Perfect straight lines, exact 90-degree angles, precise limits. It establishes total rational order on the canvas. But the true genius of this step isn't where the tape is applied, it's where it isn't. The empty center is our first real encounter with negative space.
Okay, so I want to push back on that just a little bit.
Before.
Because negative space is one of those, art school terms people throw around a lot. For a casual viewer walking through a gallery, an empty center just looks like, well, an unfinished painting. How does an absence of paint actually do anything?
That's a fair question. Think about it in terms of music.
Okay.
If a composer writes a symphony that is just a continuous wall of loud noise, you eventually tune it out.
Right.
The power of a crescendo only exists because of the silence that precedes it.
Ah, okay. The contrast.
Exactly. In visual composition, what is absent is actually what directs your gaze. By fencing off the top and bottom with geometric precision and leaving a massive void in the center, the artist is building immense psychological tension.
It's like a pregnant pause in a really high-stakes conversation,
Yes.
or a cliffhanger right before a commercial break. If you are visualizing this canvas in your mind right now, your brain is practically begging for that central void to be filled.
And that tension is exactly what Rodolfo IM wants. But before he gives you, the viewer, the satisfaction of filling that focal point, he has to maximize the contrast.
Right.
So he takes that sponge again, and he applies black acrylic over the taped-off horizontal areas. And the document knows he is incredibly specific about this next part. He applies 2 distinct coats of black.
Which really caught my eye in the text. I mean, is modern acrylic paint really so thin that a master painter needs a second coat just to get a solid black?
It's actually not about the quality of the paint at all. It's about the biological evolution of the human eye.
Wait, biology? Really?
Yeah, human vision is incredibly sensitive to variations in shadow and darkness. It's an evolutionary survival trait for seeing in low light.
Oh, to spot predators and stuff.
Exactly. So if there is even a microscopic inconsistency in a dark surface, our eyes will instantly detect it as a flaw or a distraction. The double coat guarantees a completely uniform, homogeneous absorption of light.
That is fascinating.
Artistically speaking, black in this context isn't just a dark pigment. It represents a total void. It carries massive visual weight.
And the payoff for that meticulous double coating is just stunning. According to the masterclass video, when he peels that masking tape away, something wild happens.
It really is magic.
The white bands that were protected by the tape suddenly don't just look white. They seem to actively emit their own light, like they practically glow against the black.
This is where we see the artist operating basically as a perceptual psychologist. What you're describing is the magic of simultaneous contrast.
Simultaneous contrast.
Right. Our brains do not interpret colors in isolation. We always automatically compare a color to whatever is sitting directly adjacent to it.
I want to make sure everyone listening can really visualize this. So if you put a gray square on a white piece of paper, it looks somewhat dark, right?
Yep.
But if you put that exact same gray square on a pitch black piece of paper, suddenly it looks incredibly bright.
Exactly. This phenomenon was extensively documented in the 19th century by a French chemist named Michel-Eugène Chevreul.
Oh, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was working at a tapestry factory and realized the dyes weren't the problem when the colors looked dull. It was the colors woven directly next to them. It remains a pillar of color theory today. Rodolfo IM knows that the black pigment doesn't chemically change the white paint. But by placing an absolute light-absorbing void right next to the white, he supercharges the luminosity of the white simply through juxtaposition.
He's essentially hacking the viewer's visual cortex.
He really is.
But up until this point, if we look at the composition, the painting is entirely horizontal. It's stable, it's rational, it's at rest. It's beautiful, but it feels like the foundation of the cathedral is laid. And now we need the spire.
And this brings a dramatic shift in the language of the work. The master abandons the sponge entirely.
Okay.
He picks up a spatula. And with this tool, he places a bold, vertical, vermilion red rectangle right into that tense, empty central space.
Boom.
But he makes a very specific choice here. He doesn't paint it perfectly solid. He deliberately leaves small patches of the black background showing through the red.
Okay, let's talk about the tool first. Why a spatula? We started with a sponge to eliminate texture. Now he's using a tool that practically guarantees a thick, uneven application.
Because a brush or a sponge, they distribute paint as a thin film. A spatula deposits matter.
Deposits matter.
Yes. This brings us into the realm of arte materico, or matter art. It's a movement that treats the painting not as a flat illusion of reality, but as a physical, three-dimensional object in its own right.
Oh, interesting.
When the spatula scrapes that thick vermilion acrylic onto the canvas, it leaves tiny ridges, little mountains of pigment, and physical interruptions.
So the pigment isn't an illusion of volume, it literally is volume.
Yes. And that fundamentally changes how the viewer interacts with the piece. When gallery lighting hits those physical ridges of thick red paint, it creates hundreds of microshadows.
Right.
And as you, the listener, physically walk past a canvas like this in a museum, those microshadows shift and change. The painting is no longer a static image. It responds to your movement.
That completely explains the texture. But what about those black patches he leaves showing through? I have to be honest, when I read that in the document, it sounded a bit messy. Yeah, I mean, is he just trying to give it a distressed, edgy street art kind of vibe?
Far from it. This touches on one of the most difficult lessons for any artist to learn, and that's the concept of visual breathing.
visual breathing.
Right. When a surface is entirely perfectly covered with a highly intense color like vermilion red, the image actually loses tension. The eye becomes overwhelmed, and the color just goes flat.
Oh, it's too much of a good thing.
Exactly. By leaving those little voids, those interruptions of black silence, the red is given space to breathe. Ironically, breaking up the red makes the red look even more vibrant and intense. Knowing exactly when to stop applying paint is the hallmark of a true master.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Perfection can be exhausting to look at.
It really can.
And this red energy he's created in the center, it doesn't just stay trapped there. The document details how the process evolves next.
Right. Rodolfo IM doesn't want you just staring at the center. He takes the spatula and extends horizontal bands of that same vermilion red over the black areas. He is literally charting a path for the viewer's gaze. The intense vertical energy of the red is now being channeled outward, forcing your eye to travel from the center axis toward the edges of the composition.
But then, and this honestly hurts my soul a little bit to read about, he takes that same spatula, loads it with black acrylic, and aggressively scrapes texture over those perfectly smooth, glowing white bands we spent so much time perfecting in the beginning.
I know, it sounds destructive.
It feels like introducing loud, abrasive static into a perfectly clear audio track. Why destroy that pristine perfection?
He's breaking the perfection because he needs to modify the behavior of the light one last time. Think back to the sponge.
Uniform foundation.
Right. The sponge created a surface where light reflected evenly. But now, every aggressive scrape, every fracture, and every rough edge created by that spatula over the white bands creates a new topographical interruption.
So he is proving the vital point documented in this masterclass texture doesn't just modify the physical paint, it modifies the physics of the light hitting it.
Exactly. The pristine white bands were rational, almost scientific. By scraping the black texture over them, he introduces organic chaos. He makes the flat white areas feel alive and turbulent.
Wow.
This is the essence of why a masterful piece of abstract art commands a room. It constantly shifts and changes depending on the ambient light and your physical position.
So the structure of our cathedral is built, the foundation is set, the tension is established, the textures are locked in.
Yep, the stage is set.
Now, we need to talk about the emotional weight of this highly restricted palette and the absolutely wild, unexpected tool the great artist grabs for the finale.
The color palette here is a masterclass in its own right. Notice that there are no secondary colors, no greens, no purples, no oranges.
None at all.
And there's no need for them.
Yeah.
The entire universe of this painting is born from the dialogue between just three elemental psychological forces.
Let's break those down for the listener. What is the psychological function of each of these three colors?
Well, white represents light, infinite space, and breath. It's the canvas opening up. Black brings depth, silence, and immense gravitational weight. It grounds the piece.
Yeah.
And then you have the vermilion red.
The energy.
Right. Vermilion isn't just any red. Historically, it's an aggressive, vibrating, highly emotive pigment. It introduces raw, kinetic energy, tension, and human emotion into the cold geometry of the black and white.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the final stroke of the painting, because the text notes that for the grand finale, Rodolfo IM drops the spatula.
Right.
He is done with the tape. And he picks up a pastry bag,
Yes.
a baking tool, filled with a highly viscous red acrylic, and he draws these continuous extruded lines in the air, letting the thick paint fall onto the canvas in looping chords.
And synchro.
I was floored by this, and honestly, I was a little skeptical. You're telling me a master artist from Grupo Reim is icing a canvas like a birthday cake? It sounds like a gimmick.
I completely understand the skepticism, but in the context of arte materico, it is a highly refined, deeply intentional technique. It's known as controlled extrusion.
Controlled extrusion.
Yeah. Think about the limitation of a brush or even a spatula. They both require physical contact with the canvas. The friction of the canvas actually slows the artist's hand down.
Ah. So by hovering above the canvas with the pastry bag, there is zero friction.
Precisely. The extruded line captures the exact, uninhibited speed, pressure, and kinetic energy of the artist's body in motion.
Oh.
It is paint converted purely into physical gesture. He isn't painting a picture of movement. He is trapping actual movement in three-dimensional chords of acrylic.
And when you look at the progression of the piece, it serves as the ultimate climax. Up until this very last moment, all the horizontal and vertical lines were about reason.
They were structured.
They were tape measured, right? They were about order, geometry, stability. But these final extruded looping curves, they represent organic life. They represent chaos and expansion.
Exactly.
It's the exact moment in the composition where cold, calculated reason completely surrenders to raw, visceral emotion.
Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire document, and why Grupio Regnum and the work of this great artist commands such immense respect.
Right.
The brilliance here isn't merely that he constrained himself to 3 colors or that he used unconventional tools. The brilliance is the profound, almost architectural intelligence behind the process.
Nothing is merely decorative.
Nothing. He demonstrates a deep mastery of how light, texture, geometry, and space converse with one another. Every single tool was chosen to solve a specific physical or perceptual problem.
Like the sponge.
Yes, the sponge was chosen to uniform the light, the masking tape was chosen to organize the space, the spatula was chosen to build 3-dimensional volume, and the kinetic pastry bag was chosen to capture pure, unbridled motion.
It just completely reframes how you look at art. I mean, you walk into a gallery, you see an abstract piece with 3 colors, and it is so easy to think, oh, I could do that.
But you couldn't.
You couldn't, because you don't know the why behind the what. The ultimate lesson from this masterclass is that true minimalism is never, ever about just doing less because you lack the skill to do more. True minimalism is about ruthlessly eliminating the excess so that whatever remains carries a much deeper, monumental meaning.
When you strip away all that noise, you finally give the signal the space it needs to be heard.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, it makes you wonder about how that exact philosophy applies far beyond the edges of a canvas.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're listening to this, think about the masterpiece of your own daily routine, your own workspace, or your own habits. We constantly add tools, apps, and complications to our lives, thinking it makes us more sophisticated.
When it really just adds clutter.
Exactly. But if you were forced to strip your life down to just your own fundamental 3 colors, what excess would you finally scrape away? And more importantly, what deeper meaning might finally have the negative space it needs to shine through?